It's time to talk about Graham Platner now because that's the top news story. For those of you who don't know, if you've been living under a rock, Graham Platner is this Bernie-crat candidate that came out of the gate swinging, anti-war, anti-Israel, pro-Medicare for all, but had a checkered past, right? A lot of red flags in his background, and he was doing phenomenally well against Janet Mills, the current governor of Maine. He defeated Janet Mills thoroughly, handily. Janet Mills dropped out, as a matter of fact, when the primaries took place. And here's the thing: a lot of establishment Democrats hate this guy, right? A lot of people in the pro-Israel side hate this guy. And in the past, he had been the recipient of a lot of attacks. Many of these attacks were somewhat silly. Some of them were unsubstantiated. And the criticisms that he should have received were obviously criticisms about his background, his investment into, his numerous tours and then going back into Blackwater, things like that. Those were red flags for me. The Nazi tattoo was a red flag for me. Those weren't red flags for the average American, and certainly not the average Mainer. This article seemingly is different. The Platner camp actually canceled a bunch of events. I think they said the wife was sick or something. I don't know. Let's take a look. Woman who dated Graham Platner says he sexually assaulted her. The Maine Democrat denied the allegations and said any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically untrue. A woman who dated Maine U.S. Senate candidate Graham Platner says he forced her to have sex with him nearly 5 years ago, despite her repeated objections, an allegation Platner denies. The woman, a 41-year-old Maine resident named Jenny Rassicott, detailed the alleged incident to Politico in 3 interviews over the past 2 weeks. Politico also spoke with a man Rassicott dated and confided in the years after the alleged incident, and reviewed documents, including emails between Rassicott and her therapist and messages between Rassicott and acquaintance. That is curtains. That is the trifecta, okay? That is the trifecta of a reliable allegation. That's holy shit. Personal firsthand testimony to a friend, a close confidant, back from way before Graham Platner ever fucking ran for Congress. Are you kidding me? And then also direct testimony from a therapist. That is very different from a Republican operative coming out and being like, oh yeah, I had a touch and go moment with Graham Platner. I wouldn't even say he physically abused me or anything. That's very different. Reviewed documents, including emails between Rassicott and her therapist and messages between Rassicott and an acquaintance whom she warned against getting involved with Platner years before he ran for office. Rassicott says she had an on and off relationship with Platner, who is now the Democratic Senate nominee in Maine, for more than 2 years before he entered her rural Maine home uninvited one night. In late 2021, deeply intoxicated, and forced himself on her while she repeatedly told him to stop. She said she cut off contact with him. So this is one of the two. Rassicott is the other. New York Times, if you recall, interviewed 7 former girlfriends of Graham Platner. There was one that said she had a bad moment with Graham Platner. This, I think, expands on what that bad moment was with a very significant allegation. Trigger warning. I will be reading out depictions of sexual assault from this point on. She said she cut off contact with him after telling him the encounter was not consensual. I remember him grabbing my pelvis and being really forceful of me, she said. I remember the specific moment where I thought to myself, this is no longer my choice. Platner denied the allegations. These allegations are troubling, serious, and false. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically untrue, he said in a statement. Rassicott previously described reckless and unsettling behavior by Platner to the New York Times, but she says she didn't go public with the specific assault claim because she didn't want to be known as a rape victim. Rassicott said she later felt compelled to go public about her experience because the reaction to the Times story was dominated by controversy about another woman, Lindsay Fifield, who alleged Platner mistreated her and faced attacks because of her ties to the Republican Party. Contacted by Politico, Fifield stood by the allegations she made to the Times and declined to comment further. My part of the story was just a read-over, Rassicott said in an interview, and the story was just Lindsay and the accusations of her being politically motivated. Rassicott said she was torn over coming forward in part because she agrees with Platner politically. One of the reasons I didn't come forward sooner was the huge moral conflict that I had between supporting his politics but not supporting him as a person, she said. I just want the truth out there. I just want people to have the whole scope of who he is as a person. In a statement, the Platner campaign reiterated his denial and accuses critics of trying to drive him out of the race. These allegations are very serious, and Graham vigorously denies them. They are also coached and coordinated by out-of-state establishment operatives. For a year, opponents of this campaign have thrown everything they can at Graham, calling him a Nazi, a war criminal, and a communist. None of it has been true, and this is no different. It is not a coincidence that this story comes a week before the ballot deadline, just as the previous false allegations came a week before the primary. Graham began this campaign to fight for a Maine where everyone is treated with dignity and where Mainers are put first, and no amount of desperate smears will stop this movement from seeing that vision through. Platner, an oysterman and political newcomer when he launched his Senate campaign last August, easily won the Democratic primary last month to face GOP Senator Susan Collins in one of the nation's most highly watched Senate races. His remarkable rise has been tainted by controversies including offensive online comments and allegations of past mistreatment of women. He has not previously been accused of sexual assault. So here's the thing. This is a serious accusation of the highest order, and it has all of the hallmarks of a verifiable accusation. I assume that they will explain as to why the New York Times didn't get into this, but I believe this accusation. I believe this allegation. Let me just make that very clear, especially because, once again, there are other friends with correspondence from before Graham Platner became a known entity, right? That's very important. You're not actively seeking to rat fuck a person if that person is not a political operative at all, right? Like, that's a random oyster fisherman. The Iraq and Afghanistan war veteran has linked some of his behavior to mental health struggles and alcohol abuse, but he says he's changed and has denied previous claims that he was abusive to women. Rascott told Politico she connected with Platner on the dating app Bumble in 2019 and had consensual relations with him prior to the night he allegedly assaulted her. That night in late 2021, she said she had exchanged text messages with him and told him not to come over, saying she wasn't in the mood for company. Later that evening, she said she realized when he heard a sound on the stairs that he had let himself into her house, which was unlocked. Platner came up the stairs, Rascott said, to where she was on a couch. He got on top of her, kept grabbing her, she said, while she repeatedly told him to stop and that she wasn't interested. Rascott said she smelled of alcohol in his breath and believed he was almost blackout drunk because Platner kept ignoring her protests and continued to grab her after knocking over an antique sewing kit, spilling small needles everywhere. I'd been telling him these words, no, don't, she recalled. And the look on his face, realizing what was happening, I just realized that, like, I'm in a situation where there's no consent here, she said. Rascott said she tried to separate herself from Platner by telling him she couldn't be in that room anymore, after which he followed her to the bedroom and had sex with her against her will. She said he also ejaculated inside of her despite her telling him not to, as she was not using birth control at the time. Oof. Oh, that's brutal. She went to clean herself up, she said, and when she returned, Platner had fallen asleep. She contemplated waking him up to kick him out, but worried he could hurt someone driving in the state that he was in. The following morning, she said, Platner tried to put his arm around her, and she pushed him away. She said she asked him whether he remembered what had happened the previous night. According to Rascott, Platner said he didn't remember. Rascott said she told him to leave and never contact her again. Rascott said she waited several weeks until she got her period to ensure she wasn't pregnant, then sent Platner a private message on Instagram saying that the encounter was not consensual and she did not want to hear from him ever again. Rascott had no further contact with him after that, she said. Rascott said she later deleted all of her text and social media correspondence with Platner as she tried to move on from the assault, and said she has not been able to recover the Instagram messages she sent him about the incident. In the weeks after the alleged assault, Rascott says she considered going to the police but struggled with shock and confusion about what had happened to her and did not file a police report. Even as time passed, she said she felt uncomfortable potentially telling a police officer about such a personal experience and feared retaliation from Platner. At first, she confided only in her therapist, who she continues to see. Rascott showed Politico recent emails with her therapist in which Rascott explained she was talking to the media about her relationship with Platner and said the sexual assault rape using an abbreviation for sexual assault. In the message, Rascott was not ready to go public and was seeking help corroborating her account in conversations she was having with the reporters on condition of anonymity. Her therapist responded that Rascott shouldn't have to speak publicly about a traumatic incident in order to be believed, without referencing details of any particular incident. Rascott, the T is silent. Rasico. Okay. Yeah, not seeking, not going to the police is perfectly normal in situations like this, for the record, just so you guys understand. So they don't have, the therapist who Politico agreed not to name at a request declined to comment when reached on Monday. So Rasico also shared details about the alleged assault to the man she dated after Platner, who she began dating in 2022. The man, who was granted anonymity out of concern for his personal privacy, told Politico that Rasico had told him in bits and pieces about a bad experience with Platner before confiding the full details of what happened in 2023. His account of what Rasico told him about the incident matched what Rasico told Politico. Rasico shared with Politico a series of private Facebook messages she exchanged with an acquaintance in 2023, about a year and a half after the alleged assault and well before Platner launched his political career, in which she cautioned the acquaintance against getting involved with Platner. In the messages, Rasico says she had ended up in a bad situation with him, describing Platner as a consensually careless and saying he doesn't listen to you when drunk. Reached out by Politico, the acquaintance said she received the messages but declined the comment. Politico granted her anonymity at a request to protect her privacy in her Maine community. What's his deal? Should I not fix him up with my friend, assuming he's single? He can be charming and funny, and he's a decently intelligent person, but he's not all bad. But I ended up in a bad situation with him, and I will just very politely call him consensually careless at times. When drunk, plus PTSD. I knew about the PTSD. He lies also. Forces himself on people. Wait, what? That's the cutoff? There's more. Click the arrow. Oh. No, this is the earlier. I saw your post about oysters the other day. I feel morally obligated to warn you if you were anything more than just friends with Graham. But if you're not, then I'll just shut up for now and give you the scoop sometime, lol. Just friends. Would love the scoop, though. Is he still engaged? I was working on fixing on a friend. Oh, I have no idea. With who? Oh, a girl. I think her name is Jen from like the Rockland area. I don't know. I haven't heard of anyone. He was as of last summer that I know of, but also my timeline's a little sketch. So maybe it was the summer before. But either way, they've been on and off, but then I was told they got engaged. Yeah, COVID totally messed up my timeline for everything. What's his deal? Should I not fix him up with my friend, assuming he's single? He lies also. Okay, so here is they were out of order. I don't know why the fuck Politico put it out of order like this. God damn it. A bunch of fucking boomers, I guess. Forced himself on people. One thing that grossed me out after him and I had dated was that I saw his profile on OkCupid, and that site asked a lot of questions, and one of the questions was, if your partner told you they had over 100 sexual partners, what would your response be? And his response was, that's not that many. So that super grossed me out, thinking he's probably slept with a ton of people. Doesn't listen to you when drunk, ... Yeah. So that's corroboration. That's backing up her, previous assessment. But I don't know what she says. I don't know what the other lady says after this. And then I don't know what her response is afterwards. But Politico also spoke with a friend Rasico had told about the alleged assault last summer, shortly after Platner launched his campaign. The friend, to whom Politico granted anonymity due to fear of social and professional backlash, recalled Rasico telling her about the incident, including that Platner had been very drunk and wouldn't take no for an answer. Rasico said she was contacted by the New York Times in the spring and shared off the record that Platner had assaulted her. She told the Times that she had some positive memories of her relationship with Platner, but thought he did not respect women and had cut off contact with him after an incident in 2021 when Platner had come over drunk. But the Times article stated that Rasico declined to elaborate about what had happened, only describing his behavior as reckless and unsettling. A spokesperson for the Times declined to comment. After the publication of the Times report, Rasico connected with Cheyenne Hunt, a progressive Democratic lawyer who founded the nonprofit Reckoning Action, which launched earlier this year to fight misogyny. Hunt, who had endorsed Platner last fall but renounced her support for him after the Times article. So I remember this. This is the random lady who was like who came out and was like, I hate Graham Platner and stuff like that. And I initially thought that it was because of some potential foreign intervention. It turns out it was because of this story. Hunt, who had endorsed Platner last fall, renounced her support for him after the Times article, previously supported women who came forward with assault allegations against former Representative Eric Swalwell earlier this year, prompting him to drop out of the California gubernatorial primary and resign from Congress. NBC News previously reported that Hunt was working with multiple women who had past relationships with Platner. Hunt connected Politico to Rasico. Reckoning action exists to confront misogyny in American life in all forms and manifestations, including in bad actors being elected to positions of power, Hunt said. We became aware of the allegations before ever being connected with Jenny and have been in contact with multiple women with really troubling allegations, and it just became clear that this is someone who is not fit to hold public office. After the Times report last month, Platner has said that allegations of physical misconduct were simply not true, and his allies seized on Fifield's conservative political affiliations to suggest that her allegations against him in the Times were motivated by politics. I still stand by what I said about Fifield, by the way, especially considering that she spent a good deal of time not just like being a Republican operative, but specifically defending Brett Kavanaugh against those very real allegations. Brett Kavanaugh then also turned around and literally denied women bodily autonomy. Like, you know, hundreds of millions of women on U.S. soil were impacted by Brett Kavanaugh's lies. So I will once again stand by my previous statements on that story. This is a different situation, I think. Like, here's the thing. There is, I mean, this is as airtight as it's going to get as far as allegations goes, right? Like, even in the most heavily scrutinized version of events, in order for this allegation to be untrue, would only happen if this experience is real and she felt uncomfortable by this experience, understandably, because this is, you know, clear-cut date rape under the influence of alcohol, right? But she previously did not, she felt conflicted about it, maybe confided in her friends, maybe confided in her therapist, worked through it, and then after the fact, and breaking and entering as well, which is, you know, not the main point here. Obviously, the violation of consent of someone's, you know, bodily autonomy in the process of a date rape is probably, you know, it's a breaking and entering is also another violation of consent, but nowhere near as significant as you know, rape. The only thing that would tarnish the credibility of this the victim here would be if there was like any additional coaching or something, or if like outside groups came in and were like, hey, this is a serious allegation, you should definitely come out and speak on it. And even then that happens at times, because it takes a lot of courage for victims to come out in instances where they're accusing someone of sexual assault, especially when the person that they're accusing of sexual assault is now running for Senate and is a fairly popular candidate, right? This seems very, very reliable. And it doesn't even matter if there's there would need to literally be like money exchanged, okay? There would need to have been money exchanged literally by like an outside group or something for this to come across as in any way, shape, or form like a potential rat fucking operation, and not someone who is reconsidering the experiences that they went through and the very real allegations of sexual assault. On MS Now last month, after the New York Times report, Platner denied claims that he had physically mistreated women, anything alleging physicality, anything alleging that I knew my tattoo was. These are statements of someone who's politically motivated. He told MS Now, alluding to unrelated allegations about a tattoo resembling a Nazi symbol. Platner had the tattoo resembling a Nazi symbol covered up last fall and said he had not known what the symbol meant. Rasico said she was bothered by Platner's public denial that he had been physical towards women. I know that he's capable of putting his hands on women, she said, so I don't believe that to be the truth. So that's the Politico reporting. Now let's get to...
I wanted to directly address the troubling, serious, and false allegations against me. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically false. Over the last 10 months, I have been deeply humbled by the faith Mainers have put in me. You have welcomed me into your homes, into your places of work, into your restaurants, into your houses of worship. You have shown that a different kind of politics, one that puts the interests of people over corporations, is not just possible, but is inevitable. This movement we have built, the largest volunteer base in the history of Maine politics, the hundreds of thousands of grassroots donors, and the supporters across the ideological spectrum, we were united in a love of Maine, a belief that our politics must change, and a focus on defeating Susan Collins. So,
this might be an unfair question, but I would like to know what you think should be done if Platner drops out and if there's still a road to go for Maine. I mean, I think it's fucking cooked. I think it's cooked. I think he probably will drop out. I don't know what else to fucking say about it other than holy shit, Susan Collins. I mean, talk about a person that just. This video is like 95% pablum, by the way, just so you know. Yeah, I mean, he fucking came out of the gate swinging with the denial. If Platner drops out, his hardcore supporters would be insanely pissed and Collins will absolutely win. Any replacement will be seen as an establishment stooge. Yeah, if Platner drops out, it has to be a commie. Chris Rabb being skeptical when questioned about Platner a few weeks ago is just so justified right now. AOC staying away from the Graham Platner campaign comes across as, fairly... I mean, it just looks very different in hindsight. Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of red flags that I also pointed to. This is beyond red flags, though. This is irredeemable. I said it even back then. I said it even before the New York Times report came out, where I said, like, look, if there's sexual assault, and it's over. It's fucking irredeemable. It's unacceptable. And it's true. It remains to be the case.
Regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting, but mindful of the political reality it will inflict, we are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward for the state that I love, the people that I love, the movement I belong to, and the goal of defeating Susan Collins. Those were the goals when we launched this campaign, and they remain my goals today.
Genuinely, he's saying that Platner's entire defense of this is just nuh-uh. He's saying that there were a coordinated smear campaign and coaching, but if that was the case, he put that shit on the limelight yesterday, instead nothing. Yeah. Platner's source of strength was that people passionately committed to volunteer for him. On his campaign Discord, people are sharing their feelings of betrayal, heartbreak, and resignation. He has lost his base. It no longer seems like a question of whether he will drop out, but when, and whether his campaign, by virtue of an overwhelming primary win, will be able to influence who replaces him. Yeah. I would go so far as to say that the timing of this is maybe not even potentially a rat fucking, but instead the timing of this is most likely so that there's an opportunity to swap out the candidate. The DSCC will not invest in the Maine Senate race if Platner remains on the ballot. It's a fucking wrap. The DSCC was already looking for any reason to pull the ripcord out, and this is more than enough reason. It's such a valid reason that I'm in agreement with it. You know what I mean? Washington Reporter exclusive, Graham Platner to drop out of Maine Senate race, giving Democrats time to replace him is what they're looking for. Susan Collins, a supporter of the rapist POTUS, is going to win because the alternative is a rapist to our society is so incredibly fucked now. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a clear cut. This is not like any of the other allegations. This is not on shaky ground. This is as open and shut as it gets.